Okay. That ng container and ng template was remaining now. So let's see that today. Let's do this in a new component, ng generate component template. Okay. Now, so ng container and the ng template. So these are the two kind of a directive which we have, which allows us to means it is only limited for HTML. Okay. Let's see the example first. ngIf directive, right? Okay. So is show, or let's check city list colon string of array Pune, Nagpur, Jaipur. So I have a city list and I want to render that into my some ULLI. Okay. So how do we do that? UL and LI. I'm using ng for. Okay. If we have to use ng for, we need to import it also. Now star ng for is equal to let city of city list, and we print it also. Okay. Now let's say you need to add a condition on this li. You need to add ngIf also, means some condition base you need to hide and show. So on one element you cannot have two structural directive, means star ngIf. Let's import star ngIf also. On one element you cannot have two structural element. Okay. Cannot have multiple template binding on one element. Only one attribute prefix with this. So we cannot have two structural directive on a same element. Okay. But let's say you have a requirement like before rendering, you need to add some condition, right? So now here, now inside ULLI, you cannot create a div also. Can we create div inside UL? Can we create div inside UL?
It's
No.
not good practice.
It HTML don't give any error. We can, but it's not a good practice, right? Inside UL, we should have li only. Inside table, we should have table tr td only. Correct? So to handle this, we have ng container. So ng container hyphen ng hyphen container. So ng container is a kind of imaginary element. Okay. It is kind of an imaginary element we can use just to perform our coding. It is not going to be visible, but just to write some piece of code, we use this. Now this ng for, I will move it on this. And then on li, I can use ngIf. Understood? So ng for and ngIf, we cannot have a single same element. So so work around that is we can have a ng container, we can iterate ng container, and ngIf we can have it on the element. Now you can have some condition over here with some variable, whatever the condition might be. Understood? Let's say we will just add like city is not equal to empty. Okay. If I inspect, see over here, you are not able to see that ng container, right? In UL directly we have li only. So ng container won't render here. That's the purpose of just that means purpose of ng container is just to write the code. Clear? Understood?
Yes, Chetan.
Yes.
Okay. Now is show is equal to false. Okay. I'm creating a variable that is having false value. Now call 3 bg hyphen primary div1. Now this div should be visible when this variable is true. So how do we use it? Star ng if equal to this variable. So this div will be visible whenever this variable is true, right? So currently this variable is false, so we don't have it, right? But if I change this variable to true, we will get that variable, we will get that div visible, okay? Now in ng if, let's say this variable, if this variable is true, we need to show this. Otherwise, we need to show something else. Just like in control flow statement, @if, we can have @else also. @if is there, just like that @else is there, @elsif is also there, correct? Just like that in ng if, we can pass a template, ng template. Okay. Now just like this, ng container will render. Means this piece of div, this piece of HTML content was rendering. But it just like in, if we inspect, you cannot see this ng container. Just like that, ng template is a kind of a structure where you can have some of your HTML code. Let's say over here, div is not visible. Something I can have. Okay. Now, whatever you put it over in the ng template, see if I save, this ng template won't render. See, not, that p tag is not coming over here. So ng template won't render by itself. ng template won't render by itself. It's just a way to store some HTML code, and wherever you need it, you can render it. What I'm saying, ng template is a kind of a structure where you can put your HTML and you can render that wherever you need it. Okay. Now, if you want to render this ng template, you have to give something unique name to it. So that is template reference variable. So hash not visible temp. Temp just short form from template. And this we can pass it over here after the else. Like this. Okay. So currently this variable is value is true. So our div only is visible. But if this variable value is false, if this variable value is false, then it will render this else block. And else block we are passing template. So it should render that p tag. See, div is not visible is getting printed. Understood? So
Yes.
this is how ng template getting used. Okay.
So is it like a block of HTML
Yeah, which
which
won't
can be
render by
rendered?
itself. It won't
Okay,
render by itself. We have to render it into somewhere else.
okay. Through the
Okay.
name or a ID, like
Yeah, whatever it might be.
so is it hash not visible to temp like is it how we should give it?
Yeah, this is the only way, no? Template reference variable. Where we have seen like this again. Earlier, where we have seen hash property.
You child.
Again, again.
Yeah, you chill and
Template form.
ng model.
Very inside form validation, right?
format,
Yes.
yeah.
Where we use template reference variable, form validation, view child, and ng template. Okay. Now, imagine a scenario. You have a very big form. Around, let's say, 20 to 30 elements are there. And your structure is like this. Dot row, dot call 3. Here you have label. Inside label, you have some text. After text, you have some icon. Just a minute. Just a minute. Okay. You have a label. Inside that you will have text. After that you have some icon. Let's say fa hyphen user or something. Okay. And again on this label you have some tooltip also. Which attribute we use for tooltip from HTML? How do we show the tooltip?
On hover display some.
No. By default HTML property is there, na? To show the tooltip, default tooltip
Uh,
from HTML.
Yes,
Do
yes.
that. Uh, something is there, na? By default we add the tooltip. Tooltip or what? What? Title is there. Okay. Some tooltip. We can use some like PrimeNG also has the tooltip like that also. You have this label. After that you have the text box. Okay. Now consider this label. Imagine like you have around 50 element. Okay, like this. Then again you have second row. Again in second row you have 2 element. Again third row. Again some element. But if you see this structure, this label, title, text, icon, right? This structure is same. This structure is same or something different. This is getting repeated or yes or no?
Same. Yeah, it is getting
Yeah.
repeated.
So instead of repeating it again and again, what we can do, we can create a ng template. Okay. And this structure, I will put it inside ng template. Okay. And I will provide some value hash my label temp. Okay. Now, wherever we need the label with label, tooltip, text, icon, right? I should be able to use this template, but this is static, right? With every text box, we should have the label name something else, tooltip something else. Correct or no?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
forget about it. You have this structure which is getting repeated. How you handle this instead of getting repeated? How you can handle this?
We can put it in a class.
How you can handle it? I don't want to repeat the structure.
Title.
Title.
Use reusable component.
Reusable component. Na?
Reusable component.
See,
Yeah.
what's the use of reusable component? Whatever it is repeating, right? So instead of repeating it again and again, we put that code into reusable component, right? There we would have 3 input. First input for the tooltip, second for the text, and second for the class, right? So that we can reuse that. But let's say this structure, label, tooltip, and the icon, this is not going to be used other than this component. Then will you create a reusable component? Only in this component, this structure is going to be needed. So will you create a reusable component?
No.
No.
Reusable component we should create when that particular code we are going to repeat more than one component, correct? But I said this structure you are not going to again use after this component. So by using ng template, we can manage this. But as I said, structure we got in ng template, but this is static, right? This should be also dynamic, correct or no? So now
Yes.
here we can create variable. So let tool is equal to tooltip. Okay, then let, what is that, label text is equal to label. It's like I'm creating variable on the ng template. Okay, what else is needed? Let it be, icon should be static only. Okay, so while creating ng template, I have created two variable, tooltip and the label text. Okay, and with that I'm passing some value, tooltip and the label. Now we can use this ng template wherever we need this structure, but by using ng container. See, here I'm removing this and I will use ng container. Okay, now in this ng container, what do we need? We are, as I said, ng template won't render by itself, correct? We need to render it inside something else. So in ng container, by using hash star ng template, we need to import that ng template outlet. Okay, so ng template outlet, we have to pass the template reference variable. Okay, but when we are accessing this ng template, we have some variable over here. So to this ng template, we can pass some data also. Okay, how do we pass a data? In context variable. Context. Here we can pass the variables like tooltip. Let's say this is for enter name. Some tooltip. Then second variable was label. Okay. Now wherever I need this structure, everywhere I will use the ng container and I will pass the value whatever I want to display. Okay. So let's save and check. See. No, why it is displaying text only? Okay. Here it is hard code. So instead of hard coding, we have to make it dynamic now, right? Because we are going to get the values like that. So these are late, after late, what these are nothing but your, what do we say, variables. So now here, instead of this, we will use interpolation and label text. Instead of this text, I will use label text. See, PAN card, Aadhaar card. Understood? So now this is your reusable thing. Understood? So we are using ng container with a combination of ng template, but while rendering this ng template, we are passing some data also, and that data it is going to render it over here. Consider like you have around 50 field. So everywhere you are going to have this structure. So instead of, you can use ng container and you can pass the data. Again, imagine if that data is also coming from your JSON array. So you will wrap that in a ng-for, and by using that, your whole structure will be dynamic. Understood? ng container and ng template like this we can use. Clear? Clear or no?
Yes, Chetan.
Okay. So ng container lets you to write a coding that is kind of an imaginary div which won't render by itself. ng template is a kind of what do we say, structure or a container where you can put your HTML code that won't render by itself. We have to render it into somewhere. In case of ng, we render it. In case of ng container, we render it. How do we render ng template into ng container? By using template reference out. And here you have to pass the label. This is optional, okay? If you want to pass some data, then only you will use this context. Let's say you just want to render the template, you can directly pass the template variable over here direct. No need of context also. But let's say you want to pass some data and that data you want to render in your ng template, then you use context also. Anyone having any doubt? Clear? Okay.
Yes.
Now, just like ng template, ng container, we have one more thing, that is ng content. That is what called content projection. Okay. So my button, yeah. So see, when we saw that reusable component, so we have created this my button component. Now inside this my button component, we have a button, and we have created two input, button title and the button class name. Okay. Now, again, this is static. Is this static or dynamic? Is this static or dynamic?
Static.
How it could be static? We are passing
Kind
variable
of a
value.
dynamic.
Yeah. This is dynamic only. But let's say this button you are rendering into one component where you are going to pass class and the button title. But let's say in some component you want the icon also inside button. In some component you need icon also in some pages. You are going to use this button, but inside button you need to show the icon also. Getting it? Now you will say, like, again you need to add one more input, right? And there you will pass the icon class name, and then that icon you will be adding it over here in the HTML. Correct? You're able to imagine it or no? See, currently this is your button, reusable button. Currently it has two input, class name and the button title. And this button component you are using in all the component. But let's say in one component you want to have an icon also inside this button before the text box, right? In normally button we have the icon, correct? Like user, add, save, edit icon, we put it there. So if you want to do that, what you will do, you will change your HTML, means you will add one more input, like what type of icon you need, and that icon you will add it over here. Correct? Whatever the class name, you will add it over here by property binding or something. Correct? In one component, let's say you added the icon also. But again, in one component, you need, let's say, image also. Okay? Or something else you need. So how many variation you will do in your button component? According to the pages, sometimes we have to show icon, sometimes we have to show image, right? Sometimes something loader image you need to show. It can be anything. So we cannot handle all the scenario, right? You're getting it? First, you need to understand that, then only that ng content you will understand. Means whenever you are going to use this button in some component, you are going to show, you have to show the icon. Some component you have to show the loader image or something. Okay. Sometimes two title, means this first title and then second title you need to show separated by hyphen. Text can be anything, right? So if you have a scenario like that where anything we have to display, so there we use ng content. Okay. So now here after title, let's say I will use ng content. Okay. Now, wherever I'm using this button, let's say we'll use it in admin component. Now this button component have two input. My input are not showing. Button title. Okay, component we have to add. Okay, first input I have passed, second input, btn. Primary. Okay. Let's save it and let's test it. Admin page. Okay, my button is coming, class is also getting added, and text is also getting rendered. But as I said, let's say I need the icon over here. So what I can do, within this selector, inside this selector, I can have I, class, fa, edit. Okay. See, I got the icon. Understood? So whatever the HTML you pass in between the selector, that gets rendered over here. Now you have a control, right? Let's say after this, plus also I need. See, everything it is rendering. Now you don't need this input also. Do you need this input? Do you need this button class in, button title input? Yes or no? Do you need this input now? See,
No.
if I remove this input, I will pass the value from over here directly. Got it? Now you don't need that input also, because within the selector, whatever the code you write, that it is going to render over here inside ng content. So now let's say in this component you need a icon. Let's say another component you need an image. So you will add image over here. Clear? Sometimes where you don't need it, you will just pass the text only. So this is possible because of ng content. So whatever the code you pass in between the selector of the component from the parent component, that will get rendered over here in ng content. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is ng content.
बेसिकली रेंडर टर्म यूज नहीं करते सिर्फ लाइक बेसिकली प्रोजेक्शन यूज करते हैं ये term,
Content
मतलब-
projection. The
नहीं हाँ मतलब आपने बोला रेंडर मतलब इसके लिए टर्म यूज करते हैं मतलब इंटरव्यू वगैरह में,
Project.
तो प्रोजेक्ट
content projection बोलते हैं इसको.
हाँ
Okay. So whatever we are seeing now in ng content, the topic name is content projection. जो भी whatever the content you are passing from your parent component, it is going to project that. So that is the topic name, content projection. Okay. So remember the name also, content projection. Whenever we are using ng content now, that thing we called it as a content projection. Clear?
Yes.
ओके वन मोर अभिषेक, तुमने मुझे सर्विस वर्कर वेब वर्कर पूछा था. हर किसी को सर्विस वर्कर और वेब वर्कर पूछना नहीं चाहिए, और एंगुलर में बहुत कम सिनेरियो है सर्विस वर्कर और वेब वर्कर के. ठीक है, अगर पूछते हैं तो सिर्फ थेरोटिकल बताओ कि यस वी कैन क्रिएट सर्विस वर्कर एंड वेब वर्कर इन एंगुलर ऑल्सो. व्हाट्स द यूज ऑफ सर्विस वर्कर एंड वेब वर्कर? हाउ जावास्क्रिप्ट execute is like in a single JavaScript is a single threaded language, correct? At a time only one execution context is there. But let's say you have some operation which is going to take some time. Okay, let's say you have some JSON in your asset folder with around, let's say, lakh record, 1 or 2 lakh record are there, and you are going to use for loop on that. So for that lakh, if you have 10 lakh record and you are going to use for loop, it will take some time to perform the for loop. So for that time now your angular application will hang, because it is doing something. Unless it is not done with that for loop, it is not going to be active. So in that case, that for loop iteration you will put it onto the web worker, so that will means parallelly executing that, so your UI won't get hang. Okay, that is just one scenario for web worker. I have created one video, I think, with Fibonacci
plan number
series.
something.
Whatever, it can be anything. But again, that is not
No,
the
you
real-time scenario, okay? So in real-time scenario, why you are going to use the for loop on lakh record, and why you are going to store
like-
lakh record, right? So just have a
Yeah.
theoretical ready. And if someone needs now have that, I will send you the video also. That Fibonacci series I have printed. So just see, have that web worker post method and what that works. I also forgot now. Okay. Everyone is
That
asking you that
is
question. Abhishek, everyone is asking you that question, or some in some interviews.
no, not everyone.
Right. So everyone don't ask that question also, because it is there, but we don't use that much in Angular. Okay. You need a proper scenario only, then only you will use that. Okay. Now, what was that? Query parameter we have not seen now. That activated route, or we have seen activated route in routing. Have we seen activated route?
Yes.
Well, we have seen. I didn't find any code over here.
Uh, One time you have explained
But where?
in
Which project?
one topic. One minute.
We didn't see, I guess. You said like we'll discuss it later.
Because we are just using two projects. Both the project I didn't find activated route. Fine, let it be. So activated route. We have some CRUD operation component, no? Yeah, post record. Okay. So this component post record, where was post API? Let's go reactive. Post API. Why data is not visible? User data list. Data is not coming. 7. Okay. Now, whenever we do the CRUD operation, normally what we do, if your fields, means whatever CRUD operation, let's say employee or user or product, if the fields are very less, let's say 7 to 8 fields are there, you will do the CRUD operation in a single component. Okay, we have seen that when we discussed that CRUD strategies. Now I remember. Okay. Right. In one night we had a session CRUD strategies. So different way of CRUD strategies. Okay. Let's revise one more time. So if your fields are very less, let's say 7 to 8 fields are there, so you will complete the CRUD operation in a single component. Means in the same component you will have the table, and in the same component you will have the form also. But let's say you have around 20 to 30 field. Now you cannot have everything in a single component. So you need one component for showing the list and another component for the form. Okay. Now if you have a structure like that, let's say I will use this ng container component for consider like in ng container component, where it is this template component. You in this template component you have your form. Okay. Now on click of edit, currently what we are doing 4208. Photo 08 only, no?
Yes, it was 420.
No, it's not running. 4208.
This one, try 4209.
No, but we run the project on 4208, no? Why it's not loading? Okay, button title. Somewhere we use the button title. Wait, we removed the input, na? And somewhere we might be using that. It was breaking. Okay. Now currently what we are doing on click of edit, we are just getting the data from the table and we are rendering over here. Let's say this form is not over here. It's in a different component. On click of edit, you are going to redirect to that component. But when you edit, you have to render that form, whatever the record you are getting, you are clicking on edit, that data you need to render in that other component also. Let's say instead of having this route, instead of having this form in this component, you have this form into another component. So on click of edit, you are going to render to that other component. But while rendering, you need to pass the ID also, ID of this record. And in that component on the page load, you will hit another API to get the data of that ID, and that you will render into the form. Okay. So if you have two components, in one component you are showing the list, in another component you have the form. So now on click of edit, you have to navigate to that other component with the ID. So here comes the query parameter. Okay. So let's consider that template component. We will use it as a, where is the post API? Post API. Yeah, over here. I'm changing this to add user. Okay. Now this is your normal route. Okay. Now this normal route you have to convert into parameterized route. Means this is your route without any parameter. Now you have to create a route which has some parameter. So colon slash colon ID. So this is your parameterized route, a route which has some parameter. So whenever you have to navigate to this route, you have to pass some ID along with it. Okay. Now over here we had this edit function, or instead of calling the edit function, now we will use router link. So if you have to use router link, you need to import it. So first of all, can we use router link on the button, or do we need an anchor tag only? Do we need anchor tag only to use router link, or on the button also we can use?
I think we can use.
Right, we can use it. Router link. Now slash our route name, that is add user. Okay. After that, we need to pass the ID. So plus curly bracket. Why it's not coming? Let's wrap it up inside the property binding. Plus item dot user ID. This is your static slash. Okay. So see how your URL will be add user slash whatever the ID we got. Okay. So see now. Once I click on edit, see your what do we say, route name and whatever the ID you clicked, ID it is going over here 10343. If I click on another record, see ID is changing. So you are
But what is
navigating
this? What is
query
this
parameter.
form? No, what is this form we are navigating to? On click of the button.
We are
We
navigating to
didn't
another
create
component.
this.
We created
Did
it.
we?
Huh? Just now
Okay,
we
okay.
have saw that ng template here.
Okay, okay, okay.
This is just okay. Consider, imagine like we have this form in a different component. So from your list component, you will redirect to your form component by using query parameter like this. Okay. So this is your route with some parameter. Just like that, you can have multiple parameter also. Okay. Now in this component, you are navigating over here, but let's say whatever the ID you have, that ID record you need to populate inside the form. So
Right.
you normally have that ID, get EMP by ID, get user by ID, which will give you, which you have to pass a single ID, and which you that API will give you the single record of that particular ID. So you need to read this ID and then you will pass it with the API. So to read the query parameter inside this component, you have to make use of your activated route service. That is from your routing. Okay. Activated route. Activated route. In the name itself, it is clear, activated route. What it can be? What kind of data we should have it in this variable? In the service. Activated route.
Route.
activated route. What kind of data or what this word will mean to you in English? What this word,
Currently active
Yeah.
routes.
right? So whatever the current activated route is there, that data you will get it over here. So now currently activated route is add user. So whatever the route data we have, that you will get it over here. Okay. So to access the currently activated route, whatever the route is activated currently, to access that data, how do you access that data? By using activated route. So this dot activated route dot everything you can access. Params, parent, query params, children. If this route has some children, what's the component this route has? Everything you can access. If you while creating route, let's say you stored some data. Okay, icon, something I'm passing. Then let's say title. Hi. Okay. So when I created this route, I have stored some data into this route also. So this data also I can access. Okay. First of all, we will try the query parameter. So whatever the query parameter you have it over here, this ID you need to read. So for that, you have some params. Params means parameter. Dot subscribe. You can subscribe to the parameter. So param will send you the observable type of data. So if it is returning observable, you have to subscribe to it. Okay. Result colon any. Okay. Let's add a debugger over here. Let's open the console. If I reload, see in the result you got object and with ID and whatever the query parameter you have that you got. Understood? Now this ID you will store it into variable and then you will call your API call for the edit and you will get the data and that you will store it into one of the variable and the form will populate that. Understood? So this is that query parameter. So whenever you have a separate component for edit and you while navigating you want to pass the ID, your route will be like that. Okay. And whenever you are navigating, you have to pass the value also, means query parameter. And in that component, whenever you have to read the query parameter, you will create the object of activated route. Okay. Now see what things you get in activated route. I'm not sure if we can access this. We cannot access this over here. Now over here, constant route data. This dot activated route dot data. Okay. Whatever you declared, whatever you stored value, whatever the data you stored while creating route, that you can access it over here by accessing data. See, this data you have stored over there, you can have access to it. Understood? Okay. Like this. So activated route, current, whatever the route is currently activated, you can extract some data from it by creating a service instance of our activated route. Understood? Clear?
So when the route or like when we click on another tab or another thing, like the route will be changed, right? So
Yeah.
so there like that.
What? Go ahead.
No, I mean like when we this activated route is a current route or the current URL which we are in,
Yes.
right?
Correct.
So when we go to the next other URL, the values will be changed.
Let's say
Okay,
currently
so
you
in
are
the
an ad
current
user.
component only.
Current
Yeah,
component
yeah.
only, na? Let's
Okay,
say if I
okay.
go to the
So,
pipe,
mhm.
that component nothing has to do, na, right now.
Okay, okay. So
Understood?
in that component, we have to take care of it.
Right.
Okay.
See now. Let's click on this first record, or let's click on this Swaraj record. On click of edit, you got 10331. that same you
Right.
got it over here. Okay. Let's say I go back and I clicked on another record, Gmod 10363. You got it. Understood?
Okay.
Whenever you have a parameterized route, and to read the query parameter, you create an instance of activated route.
Mhm.
Okay. Clear?
Is this the only way to read the query string, Chetan, or we can
So
use the
previously we
traditional way,
used to
right?
have query parameter also, but that data type got changed. So this query param was there, na? This
Uh,
is also there. Okay. There are multiple ways. By using JavaScript, plain JavaScript also we can do it.
yeah.
Right? That Windows dot something is there, na? Location. Like that also we can do. See. So previously we used to means params was not there. We used to extract data by query params. Okay. Now let's say after this I add something, but our URL won't work now. Let's run. Oh, our URL will work. In some application now you have URL like this. Means some text will be there. After that some value, again some text. Getting it? In URL
Yes.
you
Yeah.
will have some text, then some value will be there. Again some URL will be there.
Yes.
If you have a URL like that, now then that you can access by your query parameter, query params. But this is your, see, both the things are same only. But let's say within the URL, in between URL, you have some value that is called query params. Okay. And this is simply parameter. After the URL, whatever the value you have, this is what we call parameter. And within the URL, inside URL, you have some dynamic value. So that is query parameter. Okay. There might be very few application where you have structure like this, because this is kind of a structure we normally have with API, but not in the UI. We keep it, we don't make it complicated like this. Okay. We normally go with the query parameters only. Or sometimes you can see question mark ID is equal to like this. Let's say you have ID 123,
Yes.
then and name is something else like this. So these are all you can read it by using at params only. Okay. Clear? Okay. One more thing I will explain. In app component or in layout component, let's say you have a requirement that whenever any route change, you need to write a code. Whenever any route change, you need to write a code. How do you do that? Whenever any route change, you need to write some code. There will be a scenario like this or not? Can there be a scenario while working on a project? Whenever user change from one page, whenever user navigate from one page to another page, you need to write some code. Is it possible that we can have a scenario like this?
Yes.
Obviously, we will have so many scenarios. Whenever you want to track a user activity or something, right? Whenever you are navigating from one page to another, you want to write some code. How we can do that? So in Angular, we are managing routing by using routing, this navigation and everything by using routing. Okay. So now in your app component, what we will do, we will create an instance of router. Okay. Constructor. We will inject our router service. Okay. Now this dot router dot events. Okay. What type of data I'm going to get in the events? What type of data I'm going to get in the events? See now over here, observable now. Correct or no? Here only you can see now what type of data you are going to get from events, observable type of data. So if it is something returning observable, what you can do,
Subscribe.
right? You can subscribe to it. Event, router, event. What type of data I'm going to get? See, it is event, but what type of event? Router event. So that's the data type I'm giving. Why it is giving error? Router event, void is not accessible to the parameter of router event. Undefined. Void is not assignable to void event. Type parameter of event and value are incompatible. What type of data we get that? Okay, let it be. Let's go with any. Now see, I will add a debugger over here. See, let's me. Now, let's say I'm going, currently I'm over here. If I click on data binding, I'm navigating. Okay. If I click on data binding, see, what's the event type? Navigation start. Getting it? See the event. What's the type of the event? Navigation start. Where we are navigating? Data binding. Okay. First debugger we got in the first subscribe we got, and the event type is navigation start. Means currently we are still in the add user only. It's not navigated. Navigation started. Okay. Continue. What's the event? Route recognized. Means we said we want to navigate to the data binding. So it has gone to the routing, your routing. It has checked like route is there or not. So it has found the route. So that's why second event got triggered. That is route recognized. Continue. It is checking guard. Like, do we have a guard or not? So it is checking that. Guard check start. Child activation start. Activation start. Now it is activating your route. Guard checked. Guard check has done. Resolve start. Again, that resolve is also there. Resolve also end. Activation end. Route has activated. Okay, see your URL got changed. Child activation end. Then your navigation end will be there. Navigation end. Now your page loads.
So are these all the events
Hmm.
that are happening when we go from one route
Right.
to another?
Okay. So these are the various steps. Like in the component also, whenever your component get loaded, there are so many lifecycle events. Just like that, whenever you navigate from one component to another component, there are so many things happening in behind.
Okay,
Various,
so here we are
right,
just capturing the events, and
right,
wherever we need, if
right.
required,
We
we
can
can
write the
write
code.
some code or okay.
Let's say you want to write the code when navigation happens.
Okay, so we are just shown like what all events
The
are there and what all we can
according to
capture.
the event type, if else condition we write, and we
Right.
write our code.
Okay.
Okay, this is the interview question also. Not in everyone will ask, but you should remember it. Like you can write a code on navigation also by using router event subscription. Clear? Understood?
Yes, Chetan.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that form array is remaining, na? Single to multiple, or how do we create a dynamic form? So that we will see tomorrow. And then we will start the project. Okay, the project we started just start we did, and then again we shifted to this project. So that project we will complete. Okay, anyone else has any doubt? Apart from Abhishek, anyone is in the interview process? Anyone is looking? Let me know if anyone is looking. Okay, I'm going to do one mock interview with Abhishek. So just like that, if you need, I can provide a mock interview to you also. Okay, fine then.
Do we have class tomorrow?
Tomorrow is Saturday. You tell me. I can take.
Not this weekend. We'll connect on Monday if it's okay.
At least in the evening, because we have so many things again. Everyone fine with tomorrow? Morning or evening?
Evening, sir.
But evening people won't show up then. Saturday is there. Tell me.
So take it early morning, like how regular is.
Regular we can do because it's a morning only, so we can wrap it up. Shrija, for one day,
Yes.
just refer the recording. Okay.
Okay, I'll try to join. If not, for
Yeah.
one day I'll refer the recording.
Okay. So that from
Yeah,
Monday now we can start the project.
Okay.
Okay. Let's connect tomorrow. Bye all.